Moms podcast, where we believe trading the endless to-do list for a life with intention can help you rise above the chaos and the overwhelm. My goal is that you walk away from each one of these episodes feeling so empowered to create more joy in your life and give yourself the permission to live into the very best possible version of you. Are you ready? Because together, we're about to rise.
Hello. I am so excited to be back here for today's episode. It's been a little while since I've sat down and recorded, and currently as I'm recording, my kids, I can see them out the back window. They are completely nude and completely naked, spraying each other in the backyard. And it's just wonderful. I've loved all of the warm weather and the ability. I mean, some parts of me love the fact that we've had distance learning and we've had so much time together at home and to do just those simple pleasures. Like when I was a kid, when I reflect back on childhood, I remember so many days swimming in the pool and digging holes in the backyard and shoveling things. And those are some of my everyday memories of childhood. And I really want my kids to be able to have that rather than to feel this feeling of remembering their childhood as being go, go, go and one thing to the next and to the next. And so we've been very diligent about making sure we don't over-enroll our kids in different activities and that we're keeping it pretty simple and basic. But the whole life from COVID on, like really 2020 in general, has been all about simplifying and slowing things down even more than we were doing it before. So anywho, I went on a little bit of a tangent because that is not at all what I'm talking about today. Today, I'm going to dive in a little bit and we're going to talk about comparison because it's been so easy with everybody being at home and not doing as much, not going as many places, that I've noticed so many more people turning to social media. And on social media, the differences and opinions and all of that have just been amplified and have created so much more polarity than I think that we've ever seen before. And so I wanted to bring this up a little bit because I think social media is one of the number one reasons I think we have comparison. I think overall, we as human beings are kind of prone to having comparison, like this element of looking at them and looking at us and seeing what's different and what's the same. And I think that that's part of just the way our brain filters, right? That's the way our brain works. But what we do and how we interpret those thoughts is what makes the difference. The meaning that we give them, the meaning that we place on them changes everything. Because if you and I were to look at something and at the same exact time, we're both going to attach different meaning to it based off of our own experiences, our own doubts, our own thoughts, our own whatever. And so really comparison, I think inherently can be a good thing, or it can be a really, really, really negative thing. So there's a couple things I want to talk about comparison. The first one today is this idea of comparing ourselves to somebody else, maybe on social media or whatnot. And when we do that, we're comparing. I have a friend of mine, Jill Savage. She had talked about at one point comparing their outsides to our insides, right? So on social media, we are only seeing what they're putting forth. It's a filter, regardless of how raw and real everybody is on social media. There is still filtered information. We are not in a reality TV show inside of their home. Even as much as like stories and all of these things are available, they're still curated to a certain extent. And so we are not seeing all of those thoughts. So even the most confident appearing people maybe are lacking their confidence and feeling so insecure inside. And so we don't know that without looking so we're comparing those insecure thoughts that we're having to that other person and saying, gosh, I wish I could be secure and confident like them. When in reality, that person might be feeling the exact same way. And so it's really hard to truly compare on social media because social media is so filtered and so curated, and yet it's in our face all of the time. And what I find is that what often happens is that we start to doubt ourselves. We start to negate ourselves. And that shame talk starts to creep its way in, take hold, and then makes us feel like we're not good enough. And that's where I think that comparison can really spiral us out of control. It can get us into a really dark place if we allow it to keep going. It can really hold us back from achieving the goals and the dreams that we want. It can really just limit us in so many ways and in such a big capacity if we don't pay attention to that's what's actually going on. And it's so easy to get caught up in this. It's something like it literally, if you're not paying attention to it, it can sneak in and catch you so easily. And I will admit, I am not immune to this. Even just recently, I was feeling all crummy and I was feeling crappy about a certain situation. And I text messaged a friend of mine and I kind of shared some of what I was thinking and feeling and why. And her response immediately was, "Are we comparing a bit much?" And it was so true. It was such of that reality of like, oh my gosh, yes, why am I stuck in this spot of comparing my story and my path and my journey to hers? And I have no idea all of the other ins and outs of her story. I have no idea any of that. And yet I'm sitting here comparing one specific metric, one specific thing, and doubting and believing myself is incompetent just because of that. And so that's where I feel like comparison can really, really, really spiral us out. Now, the way that I think that comparison can sort of benefit us is seeing that other person as inspiration. So when we see somebody else that's doing something that we want, or that's doing something we desire to be, or they've created something that we would love to do, what we can do is choose instead of see that person as inspiration, as reflection that it is in fact possible. Like somebody else was able to do it, so it means it's doable. See that person as the fact that they are in that spot, the fact that they're achieving XYZ, that means that you can too. And so you use them as inspiration, not shame, not tearing ourselves down, but this ability to say like, gosh, if that person was able to achieve happiness inside their home, if that person was able to enjoy playing with their kids and not feel stressed and overwhelmed, if that person was able to write a book and achieve her dreams or whatever, that means if that's a goal for me too, that I can do that too. It's possible for me. So I think that when we look at comparison, it really is like this delicate balance as looking to other people and looking at other people in similar spaces, and one, being really mindful and filtering out and being intuitive to what maybe is just filtered and what's not real and what's not reality and all of that, and being very discerning of all of that. But at the same time, looking at what other people are doing and seeing them as inspiration, and then celebrating what they're doing. Celebrating the fact that they're going after their dreams, celebrating the fact that they've created this joy and happiness in their home, because then that means you can too. Hey mama, just a quick interruption into this episode. Chances are, if you're like me or any of the clients that I've worked with when we started working together, there have been plenty of days when you found yourself just counting down and praying for bedtime, counting down those minutes till it all went away and you could have just a little bit of a peace and sanity. Maybe you could sit on the couch without having a million people jumping on you, or go to the bathroom without somebody bounding down the door. But then as you're sitting there in the peace and quiet, you look around and realize there's still so much more to do. It can start to feel like just this ever-going hamster wheel or Groundhog Day of the same thing each and every single day. You may have even had questions pop into your head like, is this really all that there is to motherhood? Am I really cut out for this? Do I have to live with this constant state of chaos and mess and overwhelm every single day? And don't even get me started on those moments when you might feel really frustrated and irritated and start resenting your kids or resenting your spouse because of all the list and the endless things that you have to do and the weight of all that you're carrying. If you have said yes to any one of these, I want to offer you some hope, and I want to invite you into a free training where I'm going to show you the 3 key ingredients that you need in your life that are going to help take you from this place of feeling overwhelmed
and burned out and exhausted and frustrated each and every single day, feeling like that endless list of stuff just never goes away. There's stuff friggin' everywhere, and how you can transform that into having more peace within your home, sanity inside your head, more presence with your kids, more connection, and feeling like overall you still have a cleaner house in the midst of it. And beyond all of that, feeling like each day you wake up feeling so full of joy and so full of purpose, and knowing that you are enough exactly as you are. So when you join me on this free training, I'm going to give you all of that. I'm going to give you those 3 key ingredients so that you can implement that into your life and find more joy as early as the very next day. So when you go over to reneefieck.com/joyful motherhood, you're going to be able to save your seat into this epic training that will completely transform your day and completely transform your motherhood. There is absolutely no reason that any mother should be living in just survival each and every single day. And I want to show you how you can do that, how you can go to that place of thriving and so full of life and so full of joy every single day. And then on top of that, I'm going to even layer in one more deeper, is that when you can be so thankful and so celebrating that that person is doing XYZ, even if it's not something you want to do, just celebrating them puts you into this place of is this positive space, and then makes you more likely to achieve and go after your dreams as well. When we feel like we're constantly stuck in this negative spiral of comparing ourselves and feeling like no good and feeling shame and feeling rotten and low down, well, gosh, that's all we're going to ever have, right? If we feel like we're looking on social media and then at the end of social media, we're sitting there feeling like the energy was just sucked out of us and we feel like we're no good and not great, then you need to go through it and rebuff up your Instagram account or your Facebook or whatever, or snooze people, whatever you need to do so that when you're on that social media, you're feeling inspired and you're feeling like the world is your oyster and you can achieve anything you possibly want to achieve. And that, I don't know, I know for a while there was a time where I had on my feed a bunch of, mom blogger type people on my Instagram feed. And it was very curated. And a lot of the time I would be on Instagram, I would feel inadequate and I would feel like I wasn't good enough. And then what I did was I started to go through and unfollow a lot of those people. And I started to follow other women, other moms that were achieving really big things. They were, creating happiness inside their home. And to me, it felt more real. It didn't feel like just a bunch of mom bloggers, curating these beautiful feeds. And for me, that transformation, that shift in what I was allowing in my newsfeed on Instagram and Facebook made such a huge difference in helping me transition from this place of comparison and shaming and bringing myself down to a place of seeing them as inspiration, celebrating their uniqueness, celebrating that they were able to do, their goals and their dreams, even if it wasn't something I was interested in doing, but just being able to celebrate that they were able to do that put me into a much more thankful and place of gratitude that shifted and changed everything. So I am very particular when I'm on Instagram or on Facebook. I have snoozed so many people recently or unfollowed people, not in the sense of I saw somebody say recently that they weren't unfollowing or unsnoozing because of they had differing opinions or politics. And I think that that's a different story. Don't just unsnooze and unfollow people because they say something that you disagree with. But if you feel like you're constantly being pulled down, or you're feeling like you're constantly comparing yourself to somebody, or you feel like you just feel yucky every time you're watching something on their feed and you're feeling this comparison, one, do a check with yourself and ask yourself those questions of why am I feeling this way? What needs to shift? What needs to change? And maybe it is getting rid of that person in your newsfeed, or maybe it's something you need to do a little bit more deep inner work and heart check on yourself. So I feel like I kind of rambled a little bit in this episode, but it's because there's so many layers to it. There's so many layers to comparison and why we compare. And neurologically, I think that there's a reason for it. It has benefits, but going back, it just really has to do with the meaning that we place on it.
when we see how we are different from this other person, are we putting meaning on it saying that they are better than us? Or are we putting the meaning on saying like, this person is on this track, I'm on this track, and we both can go side by side and celebrate together? Or just because this person has achieved it doesn't mean I have to give myself the meaning of like shaming myself, but that I can instead take the meaning of that because this person has achieved it, I can too. And I just think that there's so much, and being able to, like my daughter and I were talking about recently, she was asking about, why so-and-so was able to play on her phone and on and on and on, and why she wasn't allowed to play on the phone and like all these questions. And I kind of talked to her a little bit about like the fact that other people are going to have other things that you don't have and vice versa. And that's okay. Like we are all in different places. We all have different things that we enjoy. We all have something different about us. And if we were all the same, if everybody was achieving things the exact same way, if we all had the exact same life, if we all had this exact same interests, life would be pretty boring. It would be pretty bland. I think like what makes it so wonderful and unique is that we are all individuals. We all have different experiences. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different interests and things. And when we can start to recognize that and recognize the beauty in everybody's unique story, then comparison becomes null. Like we just see other people as inspiration, and we see other people as individuals and their own unique contribution to our community and our society and our world. And that I think is going to just expand us to this like amazing, wonderful place. So anywho, that is enough for today's episode. I would love for you to check in with me on Instagram or Facebook. I have actually realized that most of you guys are hanging out more on Facebook than on Instagram. So if you are tuning in and that is your place of interest, let me know, because I've definitely been considering and pondering and wondering about like where I put out content and produce, stuff and make it available for you guys. And for a long time, Instagram was my favorite place because being a photographer at heart, I loved the photos piece and aspect of Instagram. But I've noticed that a lot of you like hanging out on Facebook. So let me know. Let me know where you would like to see more of the content and more resources and more support and all of that kind of stuff. So anywho, I will see you again in the next episode.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Rising Moms podcast today. To dive into the show notes for this episode and other episodes, head on over to therisingmoms.com. And if you loved this episode, would you share it with a friend? The more, the merrier. And don't forget, when you leave us those reviews, it enables us to reach so many other women with this message that together we can rise above the overwhelm and rise above the chaos and truly live into the person we were created to be. So go on out there, friend, and create a life you love.